The video footage you just saw was from a Prop 8 protest in Los Angeles held just beyond the gates of a Mormon temple. Although gay marriage was the most recent social issue under fire, the religious right has opposed other social issues in recent years, including the use of birth control, stem cell research, and abortion. In order to better understand this group's political agenda, we must first look at its origins. At the end of World War II, many people felt that the greatest threat to the United States was the spread of communism. As a result, church attendance increased dramatically. People felt that one of the best ways to combat communism was through embracing the American way. This, of course, meant adopting the nation's most followed faith, which was, and still is, Protestant Christianity. By 1960, over 60% of Americans claimed to attend weekly religious services. Although Christianity was gaining popularity, it wasn't until 1973 with the Roe v. Wade decision that sparked the religious to get deeply involved in politics. The case was settled in favor of abortion, which infuriated fundamentalists who believed that life starts at conception. This was essentially the beginning of the modern religious right. One of the most prominent speakers on the issue was televangelist Jerry Falwell. He encouraged fellow evangelicals to get involved in politics and even created Moral Majority in 1979. This new political organization had an agenda of Christian-oriented political lobbying. Falwell, among other evangelicals of this time, rallied up their followers, and by 1981, Ronald Reagan was elected into office. This was huge for the religious right, as they now had one of the most conservative presidents in the history of the U.S. in power, and the first Republican majority in the Senate since 1954. Reagan's conservative principles soon became the standard views of the religious right. Although he was able to lower both the inflation and unemployment rates during his time in office, Reagan was a strong advocate of family values when it came to social issues. After 2 terms of Reagan's war on drugs, military expansion, and anti-immigration policies, Reagan left office and was replaced by fellow Republican and former Vice President George Bush. However, the religious right was on the decline. By 1992, only 40% of Americans attended church on a weekly basis, a 20% decrease from 1960. The power of the religious right continued to disappear until it was almost non-existent during the Clinton presidency. But during the 2000 elections, the religious right appeared to be on the rise once again. With the inauguration of George W. Bush in 2001 came the further distortion of the line between the separation of church and state. Many more religious people began to use their religious views to justify their political decisions, despite the fact that the First Amendment clearly states that, quote, Congress shall make no law respecting an establishment of religion or prohibiting the free exercise thereof, end quote. Bush also pushed for multiple bills that restricted the Mexican-American border, one which suggested that 6,000 National Guard troops be stationed along the border. However, these attempts were unsuccessful. But 9/11 would bring a whole new wave of religious intolerance and ignorance.
What we saw on Tuesday, as terrible as it is, could be minuscule if in fact God continues to lift the curtain and allow the enemies of America to give us probably what we deserve.
Well, Jerry, that's my feeling. I think we've just seen the antechamber to terror. We haven't even begun to see what they can do to the major population.
The ACLU's got to take a lot of blame for this.
Oh, yeah.
And I know I'll hear from them for this, but throwing God, or successfully with the help of the federal court system, throwing God out of the public square, out of the schools. The abortionists have got to bear some burden for this, because God will not be mocked, and when we destroy 40 million little innocent babies, we make God mad. I really believe that the pagans and the abortionists and the feminists and the gays and the lesbians who are actively trying to make that an alternative lifestyle, the ACLU, People for the American Way, all of them who tried to secularize America, I point the finger in their face and say, you helped this happen.
After 8 long years of a war on terror, amongst other things, we have now reached the present day in which the future of our country is uncertain. Despite having President Barack Obama in office, who is very liberal when it comes to social issues, the religious right still has a loud voice in the United States. In fact, it was not even 2 years ago that the state of California passed Prop 8, a bill that denied millions of gays and lesbians across the country the right to marry. But I have confidence that the progressive mentality of many Americans will help social justice prevail. It will be a struggle, but in the end, equality will prevail.